So we've talked a lot about graphing quadratics, and we're just going to add another little kind of like a trick to this just to see how it goes. And then this is going to be like your x value, and this is going to be like your y value. So you have a couple of things here that you can use to find your vertex. So if you're looking at this, you can actually see right here where your vertex is coming from. It's coming from this and from this. And in the formula itself, this is negative, so to undo that, that would be positive. So we'll talk about that in a second. But you got your parent function, right? Your one that you put right here, the one that is basically the granddaddy, so to say. And then you have your function that gets moved up or down and left or right. So this is your up, down, and this is your left, right. So we call these translations. When you're moving something, you're translating it. So you're either moving it from side to side, which is what we call a horizontal translation, or up and down, which is what we call a vertical translation. So that's where those come from. So if you take a look at these graphs right here, a horizontal translation to the right comes from this number right here. But if you're going to the left, then h is actually less than 0, which makes this a plus. So I'm going to repeat that. If h is bigger than 0, you're going to go to the right. But if it's less than 0, which would make this a plus, you're going to go to the left. And this right here, if you don't have a plus anything on the end of it, it's always going to be at 0 for your vertex as far as the y value goes. So it kind of makes it kind of handy. So you can see that we're going left or right, left or right. And that's all we're doing here. We're just going left or right. So if I have a k on here, right there, that's going to have something to do with my, sorry, it's getting on the cord. That's going to have something to do with my vertical. So you're horizontally translating it, and this is part of your vertex. So that's where the k comes in. So you can see the vertex right here at HK. So let's actually try it, because then we get really good at things when we actually do them and we put our minds to it and we actually do a little work. So you have this right here. So my axis of symmetry would be when x is equal to 2. Okay, so that's my axis of symmetry. Excuse me. Sorry, wasn't done. Apology. Especially if that comes across really loud for you. I hope not. So remember, there's nothing here, so it's like plus 0. So this is positive 2 because that's part of our formula, x minus h. That's why it's positive 2. So there's nothing here. So my vertex Oop, I think that one did it, hopefully, because I'm done sneezing here, is 2, 0. Okay, that's my vertex, and you can start your graph there. So if you look at this one, the axis of symmetry is negative 8. So remember I told you the formula itself was x minus h? Well, if this is positive, that means that this had to be negative. So x equals negative 8. That's your axis of symmetry. And your vertex is, again, there's nothing here. So it's at negative 8, 0. Okay. Now, when you're graphing, oh, sorry, I have a couple more of these, I guess. So if you take a look at this one, you can see axis of symmetry. There you go. Axis of symmetry is going to be at positive 1. So x equals 1. That's your axis of symmetry. And your vertex, well, look, now you got something here. So this is your x value, and this is your y value. So you have 1, 4. On this one, grab a Kleenex. On this one, it's -1. So x equals -1 is your axis of symmetry. And your vertex, again, you're using that for your y value right there, is at -1, -5. So I love this format. It makes graphing pretty easy. So if you're looking at these two graphs down here, this is a shorter lesson if you can't tell. Yay, shorter lesson. All this is doing is moving to the left 2 units. So that's what we're going to do, is move it to the left. So when I actually make my graph here, I'm going to make it right about here, because my axis of symmetry is going to go through the -2 here. This is my little axis of symmetry. That means my graph is going to be symmetrical on both sides of this right here. My vertex is going to be at -2, 0, because again, there's nothing added here. So -2 and then nothing added. So +0 would be just 0. So this is my vertex. And then from there, you can actually figure out the rest of your graphing. So I believe it goes about like this. It's going to be kind of thin, and it's going to intersect somewhere right around here. But that's about what your graph should look like. And again, try to make these more U-shaped. I kind of got a V thing going on here. But when you're doing these graphs, try to make them more U-shaped. It's just really hard to do that. These are so much easier. But those are absolute values, so we're not doing that. Okay, this one. Put the axes right here. And then I went about 4 down and put it right here. You'll see why in a little bit. So my vertex is going to be at 6 and 4. 6, 4. So that's why I did that like that, because it's 6 and then 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 4. And I knew I had to do it like that because I knew it was going to go downwards because of that right there. So if it's going down, it's going to be basically a graph that is heading south. So, and this one was at 1, 2, 3, all the way here. So you can see this graph is very wide because of that fraction. That's what makes it really wide. And it looks something like that. Okay, so that was it for this lesson. Basically, we were looking for 2 things here. We were looking for our vertex, which was H, K, and then we're using that information to determine our axis of symmetry in our graph. Okay, talk to you guys later. Let me know if you have questions.